Game of Thrones, Season 7, Episode 4, The Spoils of War. Let's do this. What's going on, everyone? Professor of Thrones here, back for another Game of Thrones episode breakdown. This week we had a fantastic episode. It seems like we had one foul ball and then 3 home runs. If this episode is any indicator, this is shaping up to be a tremendous season. I have a couple of quick notes to mention before we dive into the specific sub-arcs of the episode. When Cersei's speaking with the representative from the Iron Bank of Braavos, the subject of the Golden Company comes up. Now, this is immensely rewarding for book readers. Show watchers exclusively will not have any idea what this is referring to. It's a very long and complicated segment of the history of the world of Ice and Fire that I probably have to make an entirely separate video on to cover justly. If you'd like to learn more about the Golden Company, please comment below and I'll probably do a separate video explaining it. The next thing I wanted to mention is Bronn. He is a very minor character in the books that has a lot larger of a presence in the show. It's really interesting to me that he's still around after all this time. He probably will die this season, but it pegs the question, is Bronn really an endgame character? We have Daenerys Targaryen, Tyrion Lannister, and all of these prominent figures in the grand narrative. Is Bronn really one of them? I really don't think that he deserves such prominence, so to say, but he's entertaining while he's around. Knowing the showrunners, he's going to die very soon. Moving along to the real meat of the episode, I've decided I'm going to separate this by sub-arc as the episode does tend to jump around quite a lot. Therefore, I think it's appropriate to start off with the Stark storyline. After all these years, Arya finally returns to Winterfell. She sees Sansa and Bran again for the first time since Season 1. If you remember, she hasn't seen Sansa since the chaos of Ned being captured all the way back all those years ago. Furthermore, she hasn't seen Bran since she first left Winterfell in like episode 2 or 3 of the show. The reunion is bittersweet in a way. It's nice to see the remaining Starks finally together again, but there is this sense of difference. All of the characters have dramatically changed through exceptional character development over 7 whole seasons. None of them are quite the same as when they last saw each other, and this is very hard for each of them to deal with. I really like that the showrunners, despite revving up the pace so much, took the time to have these core character scenes. While the action set pieces are great, it's these kind of scenes that really make the show for me, and it's nice to see that they're still continuing this far in Endgame. Perhaps none of the Starks have changed more than Bran. With Bran specifically, we all know he's acting weird, and it's probably because he's just mentally broken from being able to see all of human history, essentially. I do have a theory relating to Bran's change in personality and character over the course of the past season or 2. It's probably very far-fetched, but if they do end up taking this route, it would be insane. So what if Bran isn't different by any fault of his own? What if an external force is sort of draining the life from him, trying to coerce them to his side? If you remember back to last season, when Bran saw the Night's King, the leader of the White Walkers, back during one of his Weirwood visions, the Night's King grabbed him. Now, this is supposedly a marking of Bran. It was used so the Night's King and the rest of the White Walkers could get into the Tree of the Three-Eyed Raven and kill the Three-Eyed Raven. Most of the theories about this touch lead to its giving the White Walkers the ability to cross the wall, now that Bran is marked and over the wall. However, what if it did something else? What if it's slowly transforming Bran into a powerful White Walker? What if the whole reason the Night's King is after Bran and killed the sitting Three-Eyed Raven isn't to kill Bran and end him? What if it's to convert him to his side? Bran is an immensely powerful character, one of the most powerful characters in the entire series, if not the history of Ice and Fire. If the Night's King had him on their side, imagine how valuable that would be. The Night's King would be able to see all of Westerosi history. With that knowledge, the Night's King is practically invincible. Now, like I said, this is a pretty stretched theory, a pretty far-fetched theory. I do not think it's going to happen. However, it's an interesting notion nonetheless. Moving to another Stark, Arya, we get a great scene between her and Brienne, hey, finally has some speaking lines this season. She's not just standing there in the background for episodes upon episodes. The scene was very entertaining. It was pretty much just meant to showcase the current abilities of Arya, which we sort of already knew based on all her adventures in Bravos and around the Riverlands. But I think what we can really take out of this scene is Littlefinger's reaction. I have this gut feeling now that Arya is going to be the one to kill Littlefinger. And what better tool to do it than with the knife that was used to try to assassinate Bran? Littlefinger gave it to Bran earlier in the episode, but Bran, having no use for it, gave it to Arya. Now, wouldn't it be a nice twist of fate if Arya stabbed Littlefinger right in the gut with that very knife? It would be such a good scene. I really think that might be how they're going to do it. I said Jon at first, but now that Arya is definitively back in Winterfell, I could so see it. It could be that Bran ends up seeing a vision of Littlefinger betraying Ned, and then he might go to Arya and Sansa and tell them what happened, and then Arya will be, he's on my list, let's go. And then go take care of it right then and there. That would be sick. But that's pretty much all I have to discuss about the Starks this time around. Let's move to Dragonstone. Now, I am really not a fan of all this Jon x Daenerys shipping feel. It's really cheesy and trite, all these like little hints that they're throwing in there. It's really sloppy writing, clearly nodding at the audience, nodding at the fandom, just going like wink, wink, wink. If they were going to actually develop a romantic relationship, it should be naturally developed, not forced upon by the writers in these little fan service like attacks almost. But nonetheless, they're such minor details that they really don't detriment the episode much for me. They are annoying, but what are you gonna do? So Jon takes Daenerys into the cave where all the dragonglass is, under the guise that he wants to show her what the dragonglass looks like before they mine it. What he's really there to show her is some cave paintings he found from none other than the Children of the Forest. Now, when this scene was being set up, I was like, already, I'm like, are they going to do it? Are they going to have a secret colony of Children of Forest living under Dragonstone? Especially since seemingly all the Children of the Forest have been wiped out after the events of last season. This would be really cool. But of course they didn't do it. It was just sort of like that 1 second where you're like, oh, are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? You know, that happens a lot in shows like these. So we see these cave paintings depicting the Children of the Forest and the First Men working together to defeat the common enemy that is the White Walkers. Jon tries to use that as leverage to get Daenerys to ally with him to defeat the White Walkers. One question I have here is, how are the Children of the Forest, a mainland Westerosi people, able to get to Dragonstone? Now, this was thousands upon thousands of years ago, so it may have been that Dragonstone was still connected to the Westerosi mainland at that point. It's kind of more likely that the First Men simply had like rudimentary boats that they were able to use to go over to Dragonstone. I don't see why they would have any temptation to do so, but it doesn't seem like something that's going to be explained by the showrunners anytime soon, so it's not really worth my time of speculation. But hey, that's what I do. I just sit here and theorize about Game of Thrones all day. That is the Professor of Thrones job. Moving back to Jon and Daenerys' conversation, Daenerys is sort of coerced by Jon. She's like, okay, this is something worth helping with. But she still has to get it in there. She says, I will gladly help you if you bend the knee. But Jon is still resilient. He's still resistant. But if anything's going to happen, especially if this romantic relationship is coming to fruition, even though it's kind of cheesy, it seems like Jon's eventually going to end up bending the knee. He'll sort of reaffirm that Stark Targaryen bond that was destroyed by Robert's Rebellion. I could see it happening, but with the way this show's going, who knows what's going to happen? It's so exciting that I don't know what's going to happen, because I went into this season pretty much guaranteed this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, season's going to end, this is going to happen next season. I had this sort of outline in my head, and the showrunners are gladly defying it. Now, don't get me wrong, they're keeping many elements from it, but they're really taking their own path that really wasn't predictable, and it's really nice that they're doing so. It just keeps the life in this show, something that was so close to disappearing. So they leave the cave, and Tyrion and Varys inform Daenerys of the bad news that Highgarden was taken, and they failed to sort of keep Casterly Rock in a way. Daenerys snaps, goes into Mad King mode, and she's essentially like, I'm just gonna burn the Red Keep right now, fuck it, there's no point in strategizing. Tyrion tries to stop her, but she sort of snaps at him in like a rage-induced fit. She goes to Jon and asks him, what do you think? He says, I think what happened at the Red Keep was a tragedy and Lannister needs to pay the price. I wonder if anyone watching will get that reference. He essentially gives this great advice that her whole message, the whole reasoning behind her revolution and platform is that she wants change for the country. She wants to change the way Westerosi politics work. If she were to go in and just burn cities to the ground using her dragons, she'd be no better than all the current standing rulers that she wishes to distance herself from. Daenerys seems to take that advice, sort of. Here we are at the climax of the episode, and what I can confidently call the mid-season climax. This is the Season 6, Episode 5 of this season, so to say. Instead of simply sending armies out, Daenerys officially joins the battle for Westeros. This might honestly be the best battle depicted in the series. Now, don't get me wrong, Blackwater was pretty fantastic, but this was absolutely amazing. If this episode doesn't win any Emmys, I don't know what will this year. They depicted dragon warfare absolutely flawlessly. They showed the tremendous consequences. People in agonizing pain being torturously burned alive. Horses trying to escape the burning carriages on their back. These are the consequences of using dragons to conquer. You destroy lives. And this is why Daenerys' decision, especially after her conversation with Jon, is somewhat perplexing. The only logic I could come up with here is that these aren't citizens, these are Lannister forces. While a good chunk of them may be innocent individuals, they are part of the enemy's forces, so to say. Therefore, I could see her sort of clumping them in with the Lannister face and saying, these are Lannisters, these are people that are okay killing. Now, I do believe Daenerys is going to face moral consequences from this, especially with the way Tyrion looked by the end of this episode. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's just break down the battle piece by piece. The Dothraki come in, which was a super satisfying scene. This is history of this world in the making. The Dothraki have never crossed an ocean ever until Daenerys. The Dothraki have never rode around Westeros, and it's great to see this traditional Westerosi army in official battle lines trying to go against a Dothraki horde. This really must be how the Roman Empire felt going up against the Huns, or how some of the more formal empires of Asia felt going up against the Mongols. The Mongols and the Huns, after all, are probably the two biggest historical influences on the Dothraki. It's really cool to see something that will be written in the textbooks of the Game of Thrones world just play out in front of our very eyes. What I'm trying to say here is, as a huge history buff, this was awesome. Speaking of history, in a flawless parallel to Aegon's initial conquest of Westeros, Daenerys swoops in on Drogon, burning virtually all of the Lannister forces alive. I really didn't understand how the Dothraki were able to just ride through the fire and enter there. I know it was meant to be epic, but it came off very cheesy. But with how amazing the rest of the battle was, I'm just nitpicking here. Daenerys was very smart in using Drogon to burn all the food shipments. Now, if you were listening to the dialogue carefully, the gold did make it back to Westeros, which means Cersei can afford to pay off the Iron Bank, which means the Iron Bank will support her with more money and in turn more forces. However, she can't support these forces without food. One of the main reasons other than money that they needed Highgarden was for food. Both armies were running low on nourishment, so this was a devastating blow to Cersei's side. After all, this whole battle was pretty devastating for Cersei. So the battle comes to a climax. Bronn uses Qyburn's weapon to sort of take down Drogon. Now, I don't think Drogon is actually going to die. I think this is just quite simply a temporary wound that can be healed with proper care. But who knows, with the way this season's going, I could be completely wrong here. Jaime sees Daenerys tending to Drogon's wound in the middle of the battle, and he sort of snaps. After all the chaos he's seen, he's like, I'm gonna go straight for the leader. And that was a perfect scene. Tyrion's on the side just watching this all out. It's so tragic because he still deep down cares for his brother. He's just like, don't be an idiot, don't be an idiot, don't be an idiot. And Jaime does tragically charge in there like an idiot. I'm just watching this like, there's no way they're gonna kill Jaime here. There's no way they're gonna do it. And the closer and closer he gets, Drogon does that turn. I'm like, oh no, oh no. Last minute, someone jumps, pushes him out of the way right as the dragonfire is about to get him, and they land in the water. The armor, however, prevents him from being able to swim and starts sinking him down. Now, for many, this could imply death, but knowing the writers and George R. R. Martin, if they do not show death explicitly, the character is not dead. I believe Jaime has a bigger purpose to play in the running narrative that he can't really afford to die here. As of who saved him, it's likely Bronn. We don't see it though, which leads me to believe that they may pull a wild card out, which would be very interesting. All logic, like I said, does point to Bronn, but it would be cool to see something unexpected. And with that, the episode is complete. We got an Aegon's Conquest style Daenerys versus Lannister forces battle that was absolutely perfect. A perfect way to cap off the mid-season point. Now, in terms of episode number, this is over the mid-season mark. We only have 3 more episodes left to go. How are they going to go up from here? Probably going to bring in White Walkers at some point soon. Probably the finale, but maybe earlier. Who knows? Hey, we haven't heard anything nearly from Eastwatch or the Wildlings. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for tonight's breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, feel free to hit that subscribe button and share it with all of your friends and family. If you have anything specific you want me to explain in more depth than just a simple Q&A, feel free to comment it below and I may do an entirely separate explanation video on the subject. Stay classy, viewers, and remember that Professor of Thrones is here to teach you.